Hello, Mark.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Did a bit of streaming this morning, and now I'm joining yourself for a lovely interview, which is always nice.
Yeah. Well, we'll dive straight in.
Okay.
The first question: do you play any tabletop role-playing games?
Yes, I do. In fact, it's pretty much my shtick that I do. I've been playing tabletop games most of my adult life, most of my teenage life, and the main thing that I'm known for is I do a Dungeons and Dragons campaign called High Rollers, which we actually stream live on Twitch. We call it a live play, where me and my friends sit down and we just broadcast our live game of D&D. And people follow the narrative and they follow the story along every week. And then I've done a few other RPGs around that as well. Played different systems, sci-fi systems like Genesis and Stars Without Number. And then done a few more kind of the one-shot-y, one-off kind of systems as well. Lots of very bizarre stuff and very obscure random things. But yeah, tabletop RPGs are my life. I love them. So
Cool. So when did you start getting into tabletop role-playing? Like, how small were you?
So I have like a really early memory of maybe being about sort of 10 or 11, and my friend's brother, I think, had the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons box. But I don't really remember us playing it. I remember us kind of looking at the books and maybe rolling the dice and making characters, but I don't think we ever played it. The first time I sat down properly to play D&D was when I was a teenager. Me and my friends from school in high school, we saved up, we kind of pooled all of our weekend money, and we went to our local little comic shop where they had the 3rd edition D&D starter box. We bought that. None of us knew what we were doing. We brought it home. We got everything out. I read the rules. Nobody else wanted to be the DM, so I decided to be the Dungeon Master. We made an absolute... Yeah, it's surprising how many people that ends up, right? Where like you're the person in your friendship group where everyone's like, you be the DM. Okay. And then that's it for the rest of your life. But yeah, so we hashed our way through the rules, made an absolute mess of it, but we loved it. And then from then on, me and my school friends all through our kind of like high school and into college and then sixth form, we pretty much played every week. We played 2-3 times a week, all the way up until we all scattered to the wind across the UK for various uni and jobs and things like that.
Did you reach that point that sort of when you've been playing with the same group of people for long enough, it's mostly house rules? And like...
Yeah. I think we got to the point where it was mostly house rules. We all had our own in-jokes. We had, little character traits and things that we just carried over. The DM was exasperated. I actually wasn't the DM for the most of our high school campaign. I actually got to be a player for most of that. I was quite lucky. But I did have the horrible curse of none of my characters would live probably longer than 2 or 3 months. The rest of the party were fine, but once we got to the point where I was dying so frequently, my characters would start coming in at a lower level. They basically refused to resurrect me. They were just like, just make a new character. You'll come back a higher level. So I was constantly having to make new characters. And I think that somewhat warped my sense of attachment to my characters now. Like, I'm just super ambivalent about them dying. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, so that kind of became a thing with me and my group.
So my next question is, have you played Tales of Equestria? Which, again, I already know the answer to. But,
for everybody else, yes, I have. So it's kind of funny. Like, I kind of want to start a little bit before we played it, which was I remember reading that Tales of Equestria was coming out and that Alessio was designing it and things like that. I got super excited. I covered it on my YouTube channel when I was doing like a regular weekly news about tabletop games. And I got to come and interview Alessio, and we talked about the game, and the more and more I read about it. And I was really excited. And when I was shown like all of like the character sheets and stuff like that, I knew I definitely wanted to do like a little mini series. So I actually got my girlfriend at the time, now fiance, 2 of her friends, who are all big, My Little Pony fans, either the old show or the new one. And we sat down and we played it like a 6-episode mini series for my YouTube channel. And that was really fun. And we had a really good time with it. And it was the kind of game that I knew I would never pick up. Like, it was like, okay, none of my other friends are probably going to want to play this with me. So, I've had my fun. I got to play the game I really like. I put it on the shelves. And then later on, just as a joke on Twitter, I'm like, hey, Marisha Ray from Critical Role, haha, it'd be really funny if I ran a one-shot of Friendship of Tales of Equestria, right? We should do that sometime. Not expecting the reply to be like, absolutely, yes, let's do that. Loads of people here would really love to play it. And then it became this thing where I ended up DMing this one shot for a lot of very cool, very fancy people in America.
Yeah, and so that first video that you did, we've actually got, we've linked it on our playlist on YouTube. So
wow,
if
thank you.
If anyone wants to catch that, they can
well,
probably find a way through this video.
Find a way through it. But one of my favorite things with that one I did with my fiance Nina and her friends Kit and Martina was one of the early ideas I had when Alessio was showing me like the character sheets and things like that. I wanted specifically to have a montage of them coloring in their sheets and like getting glitter pens and putting stickers all over them and stuff like that. And I must have spent about £30 on like crayons and glitter and stickers, and I just dumped it all on the table, and they just had a whale of a time just coloring it on. And these are all like 24-year-old plus women who are just like and just going nuts with their crayons and things like that. So that was one of my favorite things, I think, doing that.
Nice. It's a very wholesome way to spend an afternoon.
Very, very wholesome. That's kind of what I love about it as well, is you know, playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, playing a lot of other RPGs. A lot of the times the solution is to fight the monsters. The solution is kill the monsters and take their stuff. Or generally like non-wholesome solutions to things. What I love about Tales of Equestria is just you completely have to flip that. And as a GM, I find it a really interesting challenge, because you can't just rely on combat. You can't rely on fighting to solve the problems. And that means you actually have to work a little bit harder to create a narrative that the players will care about, NPCs that the players will care about, and thus want to help them without necessarily resorting to fighting, which is a challenge and is really fun to do.
So how long have you been a fan of the My Little Pony franchise?
So it's interesting, right? Like, I imagine that my story is kind of similar to a few people out there, where I thought My Little Pony, I'm not going to watch that. Ridiculous. It's My Little Pony. That's not for me. Despite the fact that I love loads of other stuff, which is absolutely marketed to all genders and ages. But there was this mind block in my head, right? Of like, it's My Little Pony. I'm not going to watch that. And then when the new show, when Friendship is Magic came out, my partner Nina was, she was a big fan of the old show. And she was like, she's an animator, she's an illustrator. She was like, oh, I really want to watch it. I was like, okay, sure, you can watch that. I'm going to sit here and play video games. And she was watching it in the same room as me. And I remember listening to the show and just kept laughing. And I kept being like interested. I'd lean over and be like, oh, who's that one? What's that one doing? Oh, okay. Ha ha ha. And laughing at the joke. And then I'd go back to the game, and then I get drawn in again. And, we watched 3 or 4 episodes, and I found that I was like, this is actually really good. The writing's really good. I like the characters. And I just we just absorbed it together. We just both sat there and just watched the whole season 1 of Friendship is Magic. And I think that was the point where I realized how good the world and the writing that Lauren and the team had created. And as a world builder and as somebody who loves RPGs and loves, fantasy fiction, that's what I was really sold on. And I think that was the point where I became a fan of the show and everything that was kind of being built around it. And I think I've said it to my friends before. I said, if you changed the main 6 into human girls, if they were just humans rather than being ponies, you wouldn't bat an eyelid. You'd just be like, oh yeah, it's just a cute fantasy series. Oh yeah, people wouldn't have this weird association of that's My Little Pony. I can't watch that. Yeah. And I think that's actually the strength of the writing is that it's not just the fact that they are horses or ponies. It's that there is good stories. There's good characterization. There's good, nice moral lessons. It's a good show. And I think that not enough people kind of give it that credit and that chance. And I wouldn't have given it that chance. It was just by pure being in the same room, like Alessio, just having it on by somebody else watching it, that I appreciated that and got involved in it.
So when did you start on your path to becoming an RPG author?
I guess that's an interesting one, because it depends on how you look on it. Because honestly, for me, this is my first step into being an RPG writer. I've written my own stuff. I have written things for Patreon. I've written things for DM's Guild, but they've always been like just little bits of like, hey, I made this for my campaign. People are interested in it. I guess I'll share it with other people. This was the first time that a company, you guys at River Horse were like, hey, Mark, we really want to work with you. We've seen, we know your stuff on High Rollers. Would you be interested? And the first time I've had to write to a brief, to an actual kind of, a specification. So this is my first time doing it in that professional sense. But I guess I've been writing RPGs since I started High Rollers because, we're producing a campaign that is not just for my friends, but for other people to enjoy. And so I've started thinking about like, okay, well, what kind of content do I want to show? How can I make it interesting for people, other people, if they were to run an adventure in this world, how would they do it? I started thinking about that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting one, but I definitely consider this to be my intrepid step into the world of proper RPG writing.
So I'm going to deviate from the questions that I have here
Sure.
a little bit, and we can talk about the two stories that you wrote.
Yes. Sure.
Both very charming, episodic kind of. They feel like an episode of the show. They're not. It's not a grand full book adventure. It's part of an anthology of shorter stories. What inspired you to these stories?
Well, I think like you said, I definitely from an early kind of point, I wanted them to feel like episodes of the show. Whenever I've written the adventures that I've run, either for my own channel or for Critical Role, I wanted them to feel like they could be episodes in the show. They could have the same tone. They could have the same kind of underlying themes. So that was really important to me. In terms of inspiration, definitely there are little hints towards popular culture because I love doing that. Like I take a lot of influence from movies and TV shows and books that I've been reading. And so there's definitely in both of them, there are, some very subtle kind of hints to shows or movies that I quite like. And mainly it was kind of getting the idea of the initial brief of this kind of educational, but still fun and still an RPG adventure, but also kind of, maybe tackle some subjects that are a little bit different to your traditional adventure. It's not necessarily go and find a quest item or go and recover this thing or solve a puzzle. It was, hey, here is a problem. Here are some ponies that have problems. How would you solve this? Or like, what's the best way around it? And just also, I think, especially in the Las Pegasus one, was getting to explore that kind of locational based area, like of looking at a cool location in the world of Friendship is Magic and getting to play around with it, explore it and be like, oh, what could that be like? What kind of things would people get up to there? What kind of activities might they do? And how can I tie that into the adventure so they get a sense of exploration and stuff like that?
Cool. So what's your writing process? My or a notepad in front of the fire?
Do you know, it's funny. So in terms of getting ideas, I've always I will go on long walks, or like things at the gym. Anything where I can get my like a base kind of physical action, so like walking somewhere or going to the gym and just doing some basic routines or something like that. Letting my physical body just go onto autopilot, and this is where I sound like a bit of a crazy person, but I talk to myself a lot. So I have to verbalize my thoughts. So I'll go on long walks, hopefully quiet places where nobody's going to be around. And I'll just kind of ramble out the ideas of like, oh, I could do something like this. I could do something like that. Oh, that'd be kind of cool if I did something like this. Or I'll do it at home. Luckily, I work from home most days, so talking to myself there is okay. I don't seem too crazy. But yeah, so I'll generally verbalize a lot of my thoughts, and just anything where I can kind of keep my physical body active and then let my mind wander and come up with stuff. And then when it actually comes time to sit down and write, it is force myself in front of my computer and just desperately try not to get distracted, because I am so terrible for just, I'll just check Twitter. Who's on Twitch right now? And I have to really lock that stuff down and be like, no, I've got to write. And I'll normally put some music on, put my headphones on, and just try and drown everything out, and then just focus on the task. So
cool. So, do you have any tips for anyone creating characters, not necessarily for Tales of Equestria?
Yeah, I think that it's not so much tips. I don't get to make many characters these days because I'm eternally DM mostly these days. But generally, I think there's two things I always try and think about. And one is flaws, which luckily is built into things like Tales of Equestria and other systems as well. But flaws make characters. If you were to look at the characters in the show itself, they have their strengths, but then they also have their drawbacks, their flaws. And they are as much fun to roleplay as the strengths. Leaning into your flaw, leaning into something that makes you not good at something can lead to interesting game developments that you wouldn't get if you didn't do that. Whereas strengths will generally just help you progress at the thing you're already trying to do. So I think flaws are a really good thing to lean into. Also, having opinions on things. This is perhaps for a wider RPG audience, and it's something that I definitely have developed from going to LARP, which is something I do, live action role playing. Having opinions on things. It's very easy to make a character who's just like, I like everything, or like, I don't have a particularly strong opinion. Whereas if you create a character who's like, I hate the Empire because they took over my homeland, and I hate the Empire. No matter what they do, I will always hate them. It means that the GM especially can then put you in situations where those opinions can lead to conflict, those opinions can get you in trouble, and those can take the story in interesting ways as well. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily think about.
Cool. So what kind of things would you like to see in the Tales of Equestria range in the future?
Oh, I don't know. That's a kind of tough one because, the game already covers the things that I love about the show. So I think seeing more locations is always fun. That was something that I explored with my Crit Roll one shot, was kind of making up my own other areas to go to where perhaps, friendship isn't so universal, and, doing things like that. I've always thought it quite interesting to kind of explore certainly more like social adventures. I think is always, you don't see a lot of them. And I think that in something like Tales of Equestria, there's a lot of room for that. An adventure where the students they're all students at an Academy of Friendship or Academy of Magic, kind of a Harry Potter meets Tales of Equestria kind of vibe. Because those social elements, I think, can become really interesting. I think stuff like that could be pretty cool to see. Well, that's like the hardest question in the whole thing. I was like, I don't know. Oh my god!
Yeah, we've had lots
more
of answers to that ones. Kind of often it's just playable races. People want everyone has a playable race they want to play as. Or Kieran, I think, was a big ask for the new series.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? Oh yeah, like rules for musical interludes. I thought.
Oh my god! Yeah, that's such a good answer. Oh my god! Yes, that'd be amazing. I don't know how you would do it at the table, but yes, that would be amazing.
Yeah, you'd need a dice table with kind of lyrics in, and then you have to come up with the other half of the lyric.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, or like and like themes as well of like I can see that. I can see that working. That's really good. That's a really good answer. God, wish I'd thought of it.
Cool. Well, thanks very much for being interviewed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for like not only inviting me to do this, but also just letting me have the chance to write for the anthology as well. Like, it was a genuine pleasure, and it was a real fun challenge to do. It's not really something I've had to do before, so yeah, it was really awesome. Thank you so much.
They're both fantastic little stories, and
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for watching, and thank you, Mark, for being here.
No. Again, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thank you for letting me be part of the anthology. And thank you guys so much for making an awesome game.
Thanks for watching our video. If you'd like to learn more, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also like and subscribe to be told when we've released new videos.